you want to write a smash hit? Well, you're gonna need a mega memorable chorus then, starting with your chords. So here's my 5 hacks for catchy chord progressions. But first, tea. Where's my tea? Ray Harmon here, and today on the Hack Music Theory Show, how to write a catchy chorus chord progression. Try saying that 3 times in a row as fast as you can. But first, what does catchy even mean? Well, catchy is just an informal term for music that is memorable. So then the next question is obviously, well, what makes music memorable? And unsurprisingly, it's exactly the same things that make people memorable. There needs to be something about them that stands out from the crowd, because our brains are hardwired to only notice and therefore remember things in our environment that are different and unusual. For example, if you're introduced to someone new and their name happens to be Dave, you may very likely forget their name. No offense to all our Dave mates out there, you're all lovely. However, if you're introduced to someone new and their name happens to be Asparagus, you're definitely not going to forget them in a hurry, are you? And on top of all this, our brains are also hardwired to remember extremes. So if you meet someone and they are extremely nice or extremely not nice, either way, you're definitely going to remember them. And the same with music. If you hear a chorus that is extremely good or extremely not good, either way, you're going to remember it. And considering you are here watching a music theory video, I'm going to go ahead and presume that you want your music to be remembered for being extremely good. So watch on as I reveal my 5 hacks to make your choruses contagiously catchy and extremely good. Hack 1. Modes. Arguably the quickest and easiest way to make your music stand out from the crowd is to not use the major and minor scales. These 2 scales have been used to make most of the music for the last few hundred years, including most of the music that's being made right now today. So for example, if you're after a happy major vibe, don't use the major scale, use the Mixolydian mode. Or if you're after a sad minor vibe, don't use the minor scale, use the Dorian mode. And that's exactly what we're going to use for the example in this video. By the way, if you need some help understanding the modes, check out the mode hack in my songwriting and producing PDF. It makes them all super simple and you'll instantly be able to use them all to get different vibes in your music. I'll put the link below for you. So using our white note hack, you'll know that Dorian is the mode we get when we play all the white notes with D as our root. So that's D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. And then to find out what chords we get in the Dorian mode, we just build a chord from each one of these notes. And we do that by playing one, skipping the next one in the scale, playing the next one, like that, skipping the next one, and playing the next one, like that. So that's our root chord, the first chord in the mode, because it's built from the root note, which is the first note. So this is a D minor, then the next chord we get is E minor, then we get F major, G major, A minor, B diminished. That's that weird one. You're not going to use that in a super catchy pop chorus. And then C major. So those 7 chords, well 6 chords without the diminished one, those form the menu of chords that we can choose, we can order our chords from to create our chord progression. Hack 2, uplifting chords. So this is now the step where we get to choose exactly what chords we want and in what order we want to put them in to make up our chord progression. And yeah, while we want to have a somewhat balanced sounding chord progression, we definitely want to lean heavily on the uplifting side of things, because everybody loves a feel-good chorus. And yeah, once again, of course, you can have a smash hit that has got a sad chorus, but music has the power to uplift people's spirits, so why not do that? So we know major chords are happy and minor chords are sad. And considering the fact that we're in a Dorian mode, which is a minor mode, and all that means is that our root chord, so that the first chord in the Dorian mode is a minor chord. So considering that we're already at a minor starting line, as we go through this chord progression, let's move everything into major. So let's make this like the happiest sounding Dorian chord progression. And yes, you can make happy sounding chord progressions in minor modes. All you do is you balance the root minor chord of that mode with the major chords that you get in that mode. And every mode has the same amount of major chords, which are 3 major chords in every mode. And in D Dorian, those 3 major chords are F major, G major, and C major. So we can get rid of the minors, which is E minor, A minor, and then that B diminished. And now we just complete the chords. So F major is F, A, C, G major is G, B, D, and C major, I just pulled that down an octave, C major, C, E, G. And then we put them in the order we want. And I like the sound of going D minor to F major, but then I don't want to go to the G major next. I want to go to the C major next. So we'll go F major and then to the C major, and then we're going to end on the G major. So let's have a listen to this. Here we go. Hack 3, smooth operator. Smooth changes. So this chord progression is sounding good, but the chord changes are kind of abrupt, like the chords are just jumping around. So what we want to do is rearrange the notes in order to make the chord changes flow smoothly into each other. Let me give you an example. So the chord change from C major to G major sounds really abrupt, even though both of those chords have the note G in them. So that G is what we call a common note, and a common note is just the same note in 2 different chords, and we can use that to link the 2 chords as they change. So what we need to do is get that common note in the same place within those chords. And you can see for the C major, the G is at the top. So we've got C, E, G. So G is the highest note. So all we need to do is get G at the top. So G needs to be the highest note in the G major chord as well. And the quick way to do that is just to grab everything above it and move it down an octave. So now G is the top note in the G major chord as well. And now that G is just going to absolutely tie those 2 chords together. So the C major is just going to melt into the G major. It's a super professional way to change chords. By the way, if you don't have a common note in 2 adjacent chords, then you can check out our video on how to deal with that. So how to make your chord changes flow smoothly when you don't have a common note. It's a really cool trick to do that as well. So all right, now what we want to do is fix the rest of it. And you can see from the D minor to the F major, that's an easy fix. We've got 2 common notes actually, F and A. So we just grab that C, move it down. So what we've done is we've rearranged the notes in the F major and in the G major chords. And what we call this when we rearrange the notes in a chord, we just call that an inversion. So we've inverted the chord. Okay, now what you'll notice is there's one chord change that's always hidden, and that's the last chord back around to the first chord, because chord progressions loop. So we always need to check that. And you'll notice that we don't have the common note in the same place between our last chord and our first chord. So all we need to do is cut that last chord, so we just split that, and we're actually going to play through 2 different versions of this chord. So we're going to move the B up an octave, and now what we have is the D is our lowest note in the G major chord, and D is the lowest note in the D minor chord. So now we have a common note at the bottom of those chords that link them together. So now this whole chord progression flows super smoothly, and it's going to sound super pro. Have a listen to this. Hack 4, chord characteristics. Now, just like a memorable person will have a characteristic that makes them stand out from the crowd and therefore makes them memorable, so too does a memorable chord. It also has a characteristic that makes it stand out from the crowd. And what I mean when I say the crowd in terms of chords is triads. All the chords in this chord progression are currently triads, and all the chords in most chord progressions in popular music are triads. So a triad is just a chord that follows that play, skip, play, skip, play pattern. So you start on any note in the scale and you do that and you get a triad. So instead of starting this chord progression on the predictable roots triad D minor, let's tweak the very first chord you're going to hear in the chorus and make it stand out from the crowd. One of the coolest ways to do this is to take the middle note of the chord, so that's F in our D minor here, and move it one note down. So we move F down to E. So we've got D, E, A now. So that's 1, 2, 5. This is called a sus2 chord, and it's a really magic chord because what we've done is we've taken the third note, which is the note that makes something major or minor. So in other words, the third note makes a chord happy or sad. We've taken that and we've suspended it to the second note. So now we don't have the happy or sad feeling from the chord anymore. The second note gives us this kind of floaty, dreamy kind of sound. So it's a really beautiful way to neutralize the happy or sad quality of a chord. And what we've done now by turning our first chord into a sus2 is we've created the opportunity to inject a harmonic motif into our chord progression. So a motif is just a short musical idea that we can reuse, and it gives our music structure and therefore makes it memorable. A harmonic motif is just anything to do with the harmony, the chords that we can reuse, and therefore when we reuse it, it sounds familiar to the listener, except it's also fresh because it's in a different context. And that's exactly what I'm thinking we do here. So over the C major chord, let's turn that into a sus2 as well. So we're going to take the middle note, which is E, and we're going to move it down a note so it goes down to D. And now we have a C sus2. And the reason we did the first chord and the third chord and not the first chord and the second chord is because catchiness has a lot to do with symmetry as well. So by playing a sus2 and then into a major chord, we can create symmetry by playing another sus2 into another major chord. So even though the sus2s are different, you know, this is D sus2 and that's C sus2, and the majors are different, this is F major and that's G major, the qualities of those chords are the same. So by going sus2 to a major and then sus2 to a major, we create this beautiful symmetry with the qualities, and that's going to make it super catchy. Okay, have a listen to this. Here we go. Hack 5, Syncopated Symmetry. So our chord progression is sounding awesome now, but it's still a bit rigid. So what I'm talking about here is the rhythm, so the harmonic rhythm, and that is the rhythm of the chords. So in other words, how long the chords last and where they change. Now is our opportunity to inject a rhythmic motif into this progression and bring it to life and take it to the final level. And we can do that by creating syncopated symmetry. Syncopation is just accenting the offbeat, so we just change chords on an offbeat, and then what we do is take that characteristic and turn it into a motif by reusing it later, and that gives us symmetry and makes it super catchy. Alright, let me show you what I mean. So we're going to start by changing the grid to 8th notes, which gives us access to those offbeats, in other words those beats in between the quarter note beats. Then what we're going to do is move our first chord change. So we're actually going to shorten the D sus2 and we're going to lengthen the F major. So what we've done here is we've created a syncopated chord change. So we're now changing chords on the to and that is an 8th note earlier than the listener's expecting, because they were expecting the chord change obviously on the third beat, which would be predictable. So by changing an eighth note earlier, it's surprising and therefore thrilling to listen to. And what we can do now is turn this characteristic into a rhythmic motif by reusing it. So what we do is over the C sus2, we do exactly the same thing. We shorten it by an eighth note, and then we extend the G major by an eighth note. So now we have that exact same two and syncopation in the second half of the chord progression as we have in the first half. And the interesting thing about doing this is that syncopation is a surprise the first time you do it. So the first time the listener hears it, they weren't expecting it, and that's thrilling. But then the second time it happens, they were expecting it, which means now something that was surprising is now familiar and expected, and that is comforting. So by using syncopated symmetry, it's a way to create something that's both fresh and familiar from one chord progression. And with that, we are done. 5 hacks later, and we've got our super catchy chorus. So what I'll do now is I'll play it through a few times just on the piano so you can have a listen to the chords. And then I'm going to run it into the chorus of our new single, I's Love You, so you can hear it in its full arrangement, because this chord progression is exactly the chord progression of the chorus. That's where I took it from. And just before I play the final version, a quick note to let you know that if you want to firm up your music theory foundation, you can download our free book, 12 Music Theory Hacks to Learn Scales and Chords. Or if you want to get your hands on our most tasty songwriting hacks, then you can join our new online apprenticeship program over on Patreon. All the links are below, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next Thursday on the Hack Music Theory Show, and remember to hit the bell below if you'd like a notification. Until next time, happy songwriting and producing.